But the fact that I didn't take medication before I was about to hook up with somebody because I wanted to be able to feel and be fully in the moment makes sense. Even though it was probably bad for my mental health in the long run, at least in the moment, you know, I was good. Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Self-Aware Millennial. I am your host, J.Mix, and you will also be joined by another host who might actually make a couple of appearances through sound if you're listening on your favorite streaming service. But this is Aria if you're on YouTube, and she wanted to be a part of this conversation today, even though she probably doesn't know anything about what it is. On this episode today, I'm going to be talking about side effects of Zoloft, which is an antidepressant that I used to take a couple of years ago. I did an episode 3 years ago about how it was making me feel. At that time, I didn't realize that it was making my mental health worse. And it was also because I was taking it irregularly, which can cause a lot of problems. I do not recommend doing that. If you're just joining for the first time, I've suffered and have lived through mental illness and depression, suicide ideations, and it was quite scary at the time, and I did not think that I was going to make it through. And we'll get to how I got out of that, but I want to focus this episode strictly on just the side effects that I was going through, and I wanted to chat about my insight on how I'm feeling about it today, because I literally have not listened to this episode in 3 years. This is going to probably feel kind of triggering, but in a way where it's like, wow, I actually made it through this. And I also want it to be a testament because not everybody gets through this. And I just want to be a shining light for somebody who may be going through it or taking Zoloft at the time or taking Zoloft right now. The first thing I want to do before we get into this episode, because it's going to be heavy, as I warned y'all in the last episode that this season was about to get heavy, I need to take a deep breath, because right now at the time of this recording, there's a lot happening in this world, overseas, right here on United States territory, and it just feels as though everyone's kind of on edge, including myself, and we are saying things to each other out of emotion and not necessarily out of rational thinking. And I don't fault anybody for that, because we're human and we are going to do these things. And it does take a mature human to realize that people can always evolve and become better people. And as long as they are willing to apologize, realize their rights or their wrongs, or just even acknowledge that maybe they have done something wrong, then we're in good hands. So if y'all can just take a quick breath with me. Let's begin. I want to just let y'all know, and I'm telling this to myself, and I'm just going to tell it to y'all because it's been helping me. Just like, take care of yourselves during this time. It's a very high-strung time for a lot of us, and I just don't want to see us do anything that we're going to regret later. I've been feeling a lot better overall lately. I've had less and less moments of feeling depressed. I don't feel like I've felt depression in a very long time, which says something, that something has changed within me. Something's not the same. No, I'm just really glad that I'm not in that space anymore. I can probably list off a bunch of reasons as to why I'm feeling a lot better, but that is another episode for another day. All I know is that now I no longer need medication, and I'm only really going to therapy 2 times a month max, which is a drastic change from 2 years ago when I was last in the hospital. So that says something. To seal in this reflection of my mental health journey, I wanted to kind of go through some of the things I was saying on the side effects of Zoloft episode that I premiered. Was it 3 years ago? Let me see. 2021. So 2 years ago. So let's go through this.
But I was that person that had depression and anxiety really bad, which was why the doctor prescribed this to me when I went into the hospital. And we're going to talk about that. I'm going to finally give a nice little story time on my time at River Oaks Hospital, which is located
I talked about the
in
hospital.
the area of New Orleans. So I was feeling really suicidal, to be quite frank, when I decided to go to River Oaks. It was just a culmination of a whole bunch of things that were going on in my life personally, within my family structure. As most of you know, I lived with my family for pretty much my entire life up until like the last 3 years or so. And the thing about, at least with me, is that I always knew that I could be doing so much more, and I knew that my flourishing as a young adult, as I guess at this point I was on like my quarter life crisis situation, but it wasn't a quarter life crisis because I already had that. I had that actually right before I graduated college.
I was having several quarter life crises. Like I had a quarter life crisis right before I graduated, and then I had a quarter life crisis like probably I was like 24, and then like 26 when I went into the hospital. I've had a bunch of quarter life crises. I probably am still having a quarter life crisis even at this moment. Just wanted to put that out there.
I remember. Oh wow, should I say this story? Yeah, I want to say this story.
You better say this story.
So that same evening, I remember a couple of hours before I finally revealed to my family that I had been cheated on by my boyfriend. And I remember feeling a sense of relief, and I do also remember I was prepared for their responses. That didn't necessarily like hinder like my mood or anything, but I do remember there was just a whole bunch of other things that were going through my brain, and to the point where I just felt like if I didn't get help right now for myself, because no one else is going to do that for me, like I have to do it for me. If I don't do this now, I don't know if I'm going to be here for much longer. And I already knew, like, I was like, my life, I got so much to do. And that's the thing about when people are suicidal. They know, most of the time, they know that they have so much more that they can do. They have so much they can accomplish. They know that people love them. This is more along the lines of not wanting to suffer those feelings that you get. And for me, like, I was unprescribed. Like, I had really bad anxiety, really bad depression that just hindered my mood. Even if I was having a great time, like, it'll just be a quick shift. And, like, I just could not focus. So, anyway, fast forward to the hospital visit itself. And let's just say I did not want to start taking Zoloft, but that's what they prescribed to me. I remember this vision that I had from that time when I first took it. There's this old lady that was working there. Like, I mean, she was a very old lady that, her eyes were just, like, bugging in a way that's kind of like you see, like those witches on like those old Disney movies and stuff, like the cartoons. I can't even think of the one right now, but like it's really creepy because like when she was giving it to me, like her eyes were all bugging, like her hands were kind of shaking when she was like giving me the cup with the Zoloft in it, and that's all I can remember about my first time like about to take it.
I want to talk about this old woman like right now because I kind of explained it to you, and I think what y'all are probably thinking is like the witch from Maleficent or whatever, like before she became like the pretty Maleficent, but like the ugly Maleficent. She didn't look like that. She looked more like the way that she looked at me when she was giving the meds for the first time. It was like, here you go, here's your meds. And I remember just like not wanting to take it, partially because this woman was freaking me the fuck out. But I had no way of not taking it because I'm already at the hospital. Why would I just be at the hospital? In my head, I was just like, anything to take the pain away, I'll take it, but this is creepy and I don't know what is going, like they never told me what the side effects of taking the medication was going to be. They just gave it to me. I don't recall them telling me if I was going to have any side effects, but maybe they did and I just don't remember.
And I remember right after that, not right after that, but I remember feeling kind of I was starting to feel numb throughout the day. I felt like a zombie, and that was the first time, like, honestly, I had felt any source of relief. And I say relief in a way of like my thoughts were finally not controlling my life in that time and space. I remember I enjoyed it in a way that I didn't have to feel, which was something that I needed at that point. So I'm not like even mad about it. But another side effect I had was that I was agitated and I was twitching, especially like the first day I had taken it. And I should also let y'all know, like, the dosage I had while I was there of the sertraline was 100 milligrams, if I'm not mistaken. Um, so I, for the first day, 2 days, like, I was like really jittery, definitely a zombie, definitely numb. I couldn't feel, and I know that one of the reasons that I knew it was working in that way, the ways in which like I needed it to work in order for me to be able to process, like, it's funny because like when you're on Zoloft or any of like these SSRIs, I'm guessing I've never been on any of the other ones, but I remember how I wasn't able to feel happy or feel sad, but I could tell that I was happy or I was sad or something. It's very interesting. It was a new feeling for me.
I forgot all about that part because I've been off of medication now, at least from any of the SSRIs, for now almost 10, maybe 10 months. And particularly with Zoloft, it was a mind because you know that you're happy or like you have emotions, but like your body is not responding to those remote emotions. Like it's like me telling you right now that I'm really happy, but I can't. Not that I can't smile, that I can, but like my body literally does not feel it. I don't miss that. It's something I'm really happy that I now have back, that I have not had back in such a long time. Because yes, I was still able to experience joy, sadness, happiness, but like I wasn't able to feel it all the time. And that really bothered me, especially when I was trying to evoke feeling, when I was performing or if I was singing. I always found it to be just, it's hard as a performing artist to work in that way. But at that time, I thought, oh, I'm going to be on this medication for the rest of my life and I'll never be able to feel again. At least I think that's how it was brought to me. I think that's how they marketed it to me in terms of even mental illness, mental wellness in general. It's like, oh, once you are starting to get prescribed X, Y, and Z things, you may never ever get off of it. And that's just not true. For some people, that might be true. For me, in my experience, that was not true. I'm feeling fine now. I'm not on medication. You may need to be on medication for a while until you are able to learn how to navigate and to navigate your emotions. But until then, the medication is kind of there as an aid, but not as something that you have to like. It's a back and forth between an aid, a crutch, and just I don't know.
I have restless sleep when I'm on it, especially at the beginning. So that's kind of within the agitation of it all. I've noticed, especially after I've been off of it for about 2 months now, I've been unable to feel inspired enough to create anything. If I do, it's kind of like, I don't know, it's very interesting. I can't create as well as I can when I'm not on it, if that makes any sense. So what I really mean by that is, for example, I have not, while I was taking Zoloft regularly, I was not able to produce music because I wasn't feeling inspired to create anything. I couldn't hear anything. And I'll talk about this a little bit later, but ever since I've been off of it, I've been thriving on that. But another side effect I had currently, like since I was out of the hospital, was that this is a good one, by the way. It was easier for me to run and exercise because I didn't feel the exhaustion nearly as much. These SSRIs, or at least Zoloft in particular, allowed me to exercise and not feel exhaustion or anything, or like just feel like any of the pain that comes through when you're like exercising or like feeling tired and everything. Like I was able to go for a very long time without stopping. And normally when I'm running, I run about 3 to 4 miles straight without stopping. And I notice when I'm off of Zoloft, it's much harder for me to continue to run. Like I have to take breaks in between. But if I'm on Zoloft, I can do the whole thing in no time. It's really cool. But yeah.
Wow. I completely forgot about that. But again, it was weird not being able to feel like what your body's supposed to be feeling. Because, like, what if it was actually exhausted? Like, your body, like, my body just wasn't responding to it. I don't know. Like, I feel like it's a good thing because you can go for longer periods, but it's also bad because you can't always navigate. Your body is not going to be able to communicate what it needs to slow down. And I think my issue at that time was that I was pushing myself because I didn't realize I was pushing myself too hard. And then it would catch up to me and I go back down in the turmoil, like, because Zoloft in itself is just, for at least in my body, the way that it responded to my body, Zoloft was just kind of like a hot or cold situation. Even when I was taking it more regularly, I will say, because I always had the thing where if I took Zoloft 20 minutes before I went on a run, it was just like I was floating on air. It's a drug. It's a drug.
Exercising is easier. And this is one that's kind of bad though. And this is the main reason why I actually why I decided not to be on Zoloft anymore, at least right now. It's because when I'm on Zoloft, I am never horny, unfortunately, and it's not fair. Because as most of y'all know, like, I'm a very sexual person and I like sex, so the fact that I can't like get myself in the mood when I'm on Zoloft, it just defeats the purpose. Fun fact though, if I know I'm going to be like hooking up with someone soon, I won't take Zoloft for a few days prior to like our meetup or.
Girl, I forgot about that too. I don't miss those days. I was a lot more active back then than I am now, clearly, but I remember even when I was trying to like masturbate, I could not do it. It just took a lot longer. These things are so weird. Like Zoloft is so weird in that way. And I'm wondering what other SSRIs will have your body just not respond the way that it's supposed to naturally respond. But the fact that I didn't take medication before I was about to hook up with somebody because I wanted to be able to feel and be fully in the moment makes sense. Even though it was probably bad for my mental health in the long run, at least in the moment, I was good.
So yeah, sex is less fun when I'm on Zoloft. It takes longer for me to orgasm and masturbate, which is the main reason why, I stopped taking it. I wanted to feel the power of my orgasms again because my orgasms are everything. Like, that is like hands down why I stopped taking it. But now y'all know. I never gave myself grace when I wasn't on Zoloft. And
I was a perfectionist. I still am, but not nearly as much as I used to be. And up until that point, all I knew was perfection. There was no room for mistakes. There was no room for imperfections. There was no room for humanity, for the unleashing of my humanity. I also got to think about the spaces that I was in at that time. Very, very white spaces almost all the time in a predominantly black city at that. But even up until that time, because, you know, I experienced child abuse and just a lot of things in my, like, my early years, there was just a lot of times where I felt like I needed to appease everybody around me so that they're never mad at me, because I always feared that I would be basically abused by people. And I didn't want to feel the wrath of anybody's anger, really. So my thoughts would always ruminate, because I think that was just like a survival tactic, not survival tactic, but it was a trauma response to how I've had to respond to basically anything that was what I considered negative towards maybe my character or how people perceived me. I always ruminated on that.
After I started taking Zoloft, my anxieties were basically, like I said, a passing thought, and they didn't hinder with my ability to function day to day. I was able to process my emotions and not let them rule me. I was able to practice my coping mechanisms, less distraction and noise for my brain, like, because my brain has just so much noise telling me different things to do, things that I need to be doing, things that I shouldn't be doing right now, things that people have said like 10 years ago that still stick with me today, things that, like, everything. And it just would not shut up. Like, my brain just keeps talking. It's kind of like now, like how I'm talking, and I just, like, I can't even take my time talking, because that's my anxiety wanting to talk so fast, because I got to get everything out, because I'm like, oh, they're not going to want to listen to me. They're not going to want to listen to me and me talk for the next like 30 minutes about my Zoloft adventures, whatever. Like, when I can take my time, I can totally take my time talking and not rush.
I'm proud of myself for saying that. And I will say I did talk very fast at that point in time when I was doing this podcast. I also had a lot of practice doing these episodes like once a week at that point. I was doing an episode every single week, maybe twice a week, like recording the episodes at least twice a week, because I had so much time on my hands. I hadn't started any type of job of any sort at that point. I was just roller skating and doing creative projects and the podcast. So I had a lot more time to dedicate to this podcast at the time. But the fact that I was able to acknowledge that I still was anxious and that I was still trying to journey through my anxiety to getting to a point of like being comfortable with stillness is admirable. So good job, Jess.
I needed a new environment, but was always hindered by the unchecked mental illnesses of those in my home environment. This is why I'm a huge stickler for Black mental health. I knew I needed to do what was best for me in this situation, but it was hard. I was a people pleaser due to variables that I developed from being physically and emotionally abused by family members during my childhood. And I wouldn't even not just my family members, but I mean also people that I were close in my life at that time, loved ones. And that was something that was considered normal back then, and still to this day in the Black community. Like, and not just the Black community, but like I say Black community because like that is just one of those things that run rampant, and we're the ones that aren't going to therapy right now. So I think that it's important that we realize that yes, abuse, whether it's somebody that helped create you or someone that is a stranger that scooped you up and put you in a van and brought you somewhere to do whatever, those are all still considered abuse, whether or not you like that. And in my, I still believe that.
I still believe it 100%. We'll be doing an episode about child abuse very soon, and I will go more into what I just said here on that episode.
I knew that it was child abuse from a very young age, and I used to say that all the time. And I remember when I was a child and when I was younger, I would be like, yo, this is child abuse. And they're just like, no, it's not, no, it's not, no, it's not, trying to gaslight me and say it's not, or trying to make it seem as though like it's okay. Like what was happening was okay, because this was how I was brought up, and this was how I was disciplined, and it worked for me. And not considering the fact that not everybody has to be disciplined in the same way in order to be disciplined, if that makes sense. And discipline has nothing to do with being hit or hurt. I think a big, especially with discipline in the Black community, we all know how we got disciplined when we were on the fields, and some of us in the houses. So I couple that to the fact that a lot of our physical abuse comes from being slaves and knowing nothing else about discipline. But that's another episode for another day.
I want to put a pin in that because I'm definitely going to talk about this on the next episode. But the fact that like home was not my safe haven, it was literally the place that I knew I like. There was times where I had peace, but most of the time, me and everyone else that kind of lived within the space, there was always some, at least from what I can remember, there was a lot more turmoil and like yelling and just always just disagreements, or like just one little thing will set somebody off, which made me think, as I was saying, that we had family members, a lot of family members. I feel like all my family members honestly have some sort of mental illness that is either checked or unchecked. I don't know if they go to therapy. This is not necessarily about their mental health. I'm just identifying things from my point of view, and all the therapy that I have experienced and have gone through.
With the assistance of Zoloft, the support of my loved ones who understood the importance of me changing my environment, I am now living in my own space. I have been privileged to build up my own personal environment that caters to who I am as an artist. It's been amazing. And this podcast, in particular, would have never happened had I not lived on my own. And thanks to Zoloft, I now have a podcast. Thanks to Zoloft, I now live on my own. I've been able to be able to process my emotions enough in order for me to get out of the house, get out of that space, get into my own place, and live my life and live it comfortably.
That's interesting that I said that, because not very long after that was when I think it was 2021 was when I admitted myself into the hospital for a second time. But I think that was probably just because I could no longer deal with the side effects of Zoloft for not being on it. I think I may have still been trying to take Zoloft at that time, but I was taking it so irregularly that it was really messing with my body.
So, as y'all know, I took it for 3 years, almost straight. I began doing every other day for a while because sometimes taking it every single day was just too much, so I just did every other day, which was just fine. And there were weeks at a time where I just forgot to take it because I was living happily and I didn't feel like I needed it. And that's the other thing about Zoloft, and that's what I should have said something. That's what I should have said earlier. Zoloft was never meant to be taken your entire life. You may have to take it your entire life, but you don't have to. You don't have to if you don't want to. It's one of those things that if you want to get off of it, you know it's there for you whenever you need it. So, right, there was also perks, as I said earlier. When I was sad, annoyed, depressed, I didn't feel those emotions nearly as much, which was great because those were the same emotions that would overcome me and I wasn't able to, function for the day, and they would get me to suicidal thinking. And I knew I didn't want that, especially for what I was trying to achieve in my life. And that's the kind of stuff that was hindering me from moving forward. But those were some of the perks, but some of the letdowns of having Zoloft was, I wasn't able to mentally recognize at that point when I was happy. I didn't always feel the extent of the joy that I knew I could feel in that certain moment. So I could be somewhere and I could be extremely, living my life, even roller skating sometimes. I'm out there and I know my favorite song comes on my shuffle, and I'm usually getting really hyped up and excited that it's there, but when I'm on Zoloft, I'm it's still there, but it's not as elevated. I just don't feel those same emotions. I don't feel the extent of the emotion that I know I could be feeling at that time. So that's why I stopped pretty much taking it. Obviously also because, not horny, and I wanted to be. So now I am. Okay. How I'm feeling now. These are some of the cool side effects I've noticed since coming off of Zoloft. One in particular that has been amazing And I will say this, my dreams, the dreams that I've been having are so vivid. I can remember them. I never was able to do that while I was like within the last couple of years. It's been a while since I've had frequent dreams. Like every single night I will have a dream that I can remember the next day. And a lot of them have been including my late grandma. And so I'm like, oh my goodness, like this is really cool. Like I'm getting to see her again and like just kind of talk to her or interact with her. And I've noticed that, you know, like when I have those dreams too, like I don't know, it's just really reassuring. Some of them are kind of weird and quirky too.
That's one thing I forgot about the lack of dreams while I was on that medication. And I don't even honestly remember like the medication I started taking afterwards, which was busoprone and tioleptal. I don't remember if I was having vivid dreams while I was on those medications either. But funnily enough, I just had a dream about my grandma the other night. It'll be now about 4 years and a couple of days of her passing, and it's nice to like have her visit me in my dreams. So I'm glad I'm able to do that while off of these medications.
Another cool thing that has happened since I've been off of Zoloft, my ability to create has come back. I'm thriving. I've noticed I've been getting a lot more rest. I've been like trying to prioritize my rest, and I've noticed even when I'm like taking naps sometimes, music is playing as I'm napping. Like music that I've created in my own brain, which is so interesting. And so like every time that happens, if I remember the idea, which I normally do, the music idea, I'll go ahead and like get on my audio software or Logic Pro and lay it all out, and then I have a new song.
I remember at this time I still had, like I said, I wasn't working yet. I wasn't having to work my 9 to 5 in order to get by. So I had a lot more creative energy to just like sleep and then wake up and create something. I wish I missed that. I want to do that. Like I'm trying to get back to that, but now I have to do it the more traditional capitalistic, I should say the more traditional way under the guise of capitalism.
And as I said just now, my sleeping has been more restful than it has in the past. I haven't been restless when I sleep. Like when I get to sleep, I sleep and then that's it. Like I don't ever wake up in the middle of the night because I can't sleep or anything. I've been sleeping like
I gotta pee. I'll be back.
Is this conversation speaking to you right now? Do you feel the self-awareness taking over your body like a real good song? I want you to make a mental note to share the Self-Aware Millennial podcast with someone you love, because sharing is caring and love is not possessive. Sorry, y'all, but y'all can't have it to yourself. But for real, y'all know how good it feels when someone shares with you, whether it's their resources, their food, their wisdom, or their spouse. Okay, well, some of us. Spread the love. Decapitalize your mind and practice the gift of sharing. And want to help us reach new audiences? Rate us 5 stars on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. If you're feeling extra giving, leave a compliment. Come on, you know you want to. Enjoy the rest of the show.
All right, I feel better now.
And then the last thing I'll say is that I've been honoring and respecting all of my emotions during this time, because I knew as I was going to be getting off of it, my emotions were going to be all over the place. And as y'all had saw, I put on Instagram live, or I'm sorry, IGTV on the Instagram page, that just kind of like one of my moments where I was feeling down and I was feeling not suicidal, but like kind of just like talking about it. And I just wanted to give y'all an understanding of like where I was, how I felt in my low moments, because that's a side effect of depression and it shouldn't be hidden, and I don't want to hide it from y'all. I want y'all to be able to know and see like what it looks like and compare it to, how I am when I'm on a good day. But I mean, all of it is valid. All of it should be given the same amount of space, and amount of recognition. Because if you don't, then you're suppressing that emotion, and that can come out in other ways.
I do believe that if you don't address things that need to be addressed, especially if it pertains to how you react or how, you know, your mental health shows up, it's going to come out in other ways. Like, I think, and we all know, I'm not going to say we all know this, I'm not going to assume, but even if it's just your first time listening to just me or somebody just kind of process their emotions and reflect on their previous thoughts on something, and seeing how they've evolved, like just kind of, it's almost voyeuristic of everybody that's watching this right now. It's like, oh, you're watching somebody process their thoughts about their earlier thoughts. Not everybody gets a chance to do this. Not everybody gets a chance to watch how they've grown. But honestly, if you have a Facebook and you've been checking out Facebook memories or Instagram memories, and some of the things that maybe you posted that Facebook reminds you about, it's basically the same thing.
I still have Zoloft if I need it, but as of right now, this time in my life, I don't need to take it, and I'm not going to. I'm going to try my best now that I have the tools, the coping mechanisms to thrive in my mental health without it. I'm going to really hold myself accountable and make sure that I'm trying my best before I ever have to get back on it. But again, it's always there if I need it.
I don't specifically remember when I threw away the entire Zoloft bottle. I may or may not still have one of those, but I feel like I was at the point where I was taking the other medication, trileptal and busoprone, that I decided, okay, well, that means I don't need the Zoloft anymore. And honestly, like even looking or thinking about Zoloft at this point just reminds me of like the horrendous levels of emotion, the back and forth of my emotions that I was experiencing. And it's like a bad boyfriend or breakup. You just know you can never go back to it. It's like something really repulsive. Zoloft is repulsive to me now. I don't want to ever take it again. I don't ever want to experience what the only, God, and this is the eating disorder of my life that I never really talk about. But I did enjoy the exercise effects of it because I wasn't able to necessarily feel the whole, like I was able to exercise more without feeling the side effects nearly as much. I was smaller. I was not intentionally missing meals when I was taking Zoloft. I just didn't feel hungry. I want to take that back. I was missing meals, but it was because I was not hungry, because I'm not going to eat if I'm not hungry. And that was one thing I noticed after getting off of Zoloft, and probably even going on to the next medication, was just my increase in appetite. And it made me wonder, okay, was my body just like, because it was always in this altered state of feeling, not being able to feel, one of the things that I didn't realize was that maybe my body has been deprived of food. And when I got off of Zoloft and started taking the other medication, maybe that was just my body trying to, it wasn't in survival mode anymore, so it was just trying to eat everything. That's something I didn't even really think about until just now. And I think that's pretty much all of my side effects of Zoloft Part 2 that I can think of. I hope that y'all enjoyed this episode. If you enjoyed listening to myself 3 years or 2 years ago and now, please subscribe, because I'll be doing more of these and more reflections on past episodes that I found to be very profound in my current journey. And I just wanted to address the last episode because Patreon knows this, but I took maybe 4 whole weeks, a whole month, to produce that 20-minute episode. And I don't fault myself for it, because I know there was a lot that led up to that episode finally premiering. And I've talked about this on Patreon. Go over there if you feel like finding out what it is. But I also realized I hate teleprompters. I hate writing scripts. I take that back. I don't hate teleprompters. I hate writing scripts. And I'd rather just be organic like this. I've done that in the past. I've been doing it. It's been working out for myself pretty fine. And I think for this season, when I have these individual episodes with just myself, it's a lot easier when I have like a guest to film these episodes and to record these episodes, because I have somebody to do back and forth with. But when you're by yourself, it's like, now I gotta talk for a whole hour. And now with the video component, because I'm back on YouTube, it's like, it just feels like extra effort. It's something that I'm gracefully diving back into on a regular basis, but on a basis that is comfortable for me. So you may not always see an individual or an episode like this. I'm trying different things out. This is an experimental stage. I would consider this season to be like the full first season of the Self-Aware Millennial, where like we are actually doing things the way I wanted to do it pre-COVID, and then COVID hit and then we had to do everything virtual. So this is really the Self-Aware Millennial's first time operating like an actual podcast production business. I don't know. But also the second thing I wanted to say about that last episode is that I mentioned that I'm really trying to live more of a social media free lifestyle. And I found myself after that episode being on social media more, which was just so oxymoron of me. But I kind of gave myself forgiveness for that, only because I felt a lot better that I took all that time off, that I felt like I had more control over whether or not I wanted to be online in the first place. Because sometimes we'd be online and we'd be like, I don't want to, like you realize you have other things to do, like I was saying in the other episode, and I feel like I'm much more in control of my life because I took that time off, and I will continue to do it again and again and again. I hope y'all join along in that effort whenever you are feeling like you need a social media detox. The releases of these episodes are going to be irregular for now because we are currently getting ready to find a new home to host all of my guests that are coming up for this upcoming season. It's looking promising. I have a lot of friends and community that want to help bring this to life. So I appreciate y'all as a community just bearing with me as we go through this whole new journey. I will be honest that I was feeling really discouraged just a week or two ago, mostly because I was denied a proposal for something that I was hoping to do with Self-Aware Millennial. But I realized that it's kind of a blessing in disguise because I still have so much community around me that like I don't necessarily need the money to make it happen. It's a lot easier when you have money already in the bag that you can compensate your people, but it's not impossible. The first 2 Self-Aware Millennial live shows are now up on Patreon. It is $10 for each episode, but if you are already a patron, you can watch them for free. My bad. If you're paying the $5 tier or up, you will be able to access those shows right now for free, especially if you missed it or if you just want to go back and listen to it again. One funny thing I was trying to figure out that I finally figured out was video proxies and how you can create those things to make your editing process a lot quicker. I just learned that over the last 2 weeks, and I'm very happy for it. Help my editing process go a lot quicker so that I can get all these videos out for y'all, because Triple Threat Media is on the up and up as well. We have a couple of projects coming up that we are doing for others, but we also have some that we are working on for ourselves as well. I guess I can let y'all know also that I'm doing a show at Always Lounge on Halloween for a burlesque version of Little Shop of Horrors. So if you want to enjoy that, please feel free to come. I will leave the link in the bio on how you can get tickets. All right, I think that's it. I hope that y'all have a great day. Take care of yourselves, and I'll see you in the next episode. Bye.